Greetings, fellow conquerors. This is darkfireslide, and welcome to another Top 10 here in EU4. Today, I'll be talking about the top 10 nations I feel are best for learning to become a better player, whether because they teach you how to use unique mechanics, or because they take a bit of cunning and strategy to do well, but are forgiving compared to other starts. I decided to make this because many people asked for advice on how to play the game, and I figured one way would be to point people in the direction of some nations that really teach you how to play. Without further ado, let's get started. Number 10. Portugal. One of the biggest parts of EU4, especially in its historical time period, is the practice of colonization. Portugal is an interesting nation because it stands to become an extremely powerful colonial empire, though it is a fairly average country overall, with its only glaring weakness being its lack of military ideas. There are two ways to play Portugal. One is to ally Castile, since you are historical friends, and the other is to ally Aragon instead, and attack Castile provided you can overcome any of his allies. Either way, your primary methods of growth will involve using your colonization to make colonies with which to gather income, as well as expand into Africa and India using the casus belli obtained from completing expansion ideas, preferably before diplomatic Tech 23 when you gain the imperialism casus belli. Number 9. Venice. Another aspect of EU4 that can be difficult to understand is trade. Venice is the perfect introductory nation into the concept of trade. You have a very good trade node, where many other nodes funnel in, meaning that you make a large amount of money just from trade. Venice is just big enough for you to pick and choose allies from among the greats, including France, whom you can use to conquer and unite the Italian lands to form Italy proper, and perhaps even the Roman Empire later. Venice starts with 2 vassals that can teach you how to deal with subjects as well, including the issue where sometimes vassals are a liability. It is not a particularly challenging start, but it is much more interesting and involved than a nation like the Ottomans, and forces you to play at least somewhat intelligently until you become a superpower. Number 8. Ethiopia. If you're not completely sure on how accepted cultures and religions, as well as westernization work, then this nation is a crash course on that exact subject. Ethiopia is a seemingly powerful nation that really isn't all that strong to start with, but through conquest and clever use of either expansion or exploration, it can become powerful in its own right and westernize in a reasonable amount of time. In the next DLC, The Rights of Man, the Coptic faith, which Ethiopia has, is getting an overhaul, and so this nation will be all the more interesting for that, especially considering that the DLC will do away with the extremely painful westernization mechanic. It is highly recommended that you take religious ideas, since, because you're Coptic, you can use the religious war casus belli from the first religious idea to get a lot of land at reduced aggressive expansion from nearly every opponent you come across. Number 7. Crimea. Hordes are really fun. Hordes always have a casus belli against all of their neighbors, and can have armies consisting of 100% cavalry that can obliterate early enemy stacks. Crimea is notable in particular for being able to easily ally the Ottomans, and then using them to be able to expand early into Europe before you reform your government and eventually westernize. Of course, in the Cossacks this isn't necessary if you raise enough land, but regardless of how you play, hordes are great, and you retain the amazing horde national ideas even after reforming. Crimea isn't as strong as some of the other hordes, but that's part of what makes the learning experience all that much more valuable. Number 6. The Manchu Tribes. Northeast of China lies the land of Manchuria, home to 3 hordes vying for power over the other. Unlike other hordes, they do not get generic horde ideas. They get a special set of ideas that help them grow. If you take enough Manchurian land, you can form the nation of Manchu, and get automatic claims on a lot of land. But that's not all. After forming Manchu, you can press your advantage and attempt to form the mighty Qing Empire, gaining claims on many parts of China proper. This start teaches you how to manage tricky alliances and tenuous starts, and lets you experiment with forming nations, since you get to do it not once, but twice. Number 5. Japan. Whether playing as a daimyo or the Ashikaga shogun, Japan is a unique experience that teaches many valuable lessons. Before the country is united, you must learn to handle a web of alliances that constantly shift as daimyos rise and fall. You must also be wary of the shogun's ire should you grow too large. Once you unite Japan and get Japanese ideas, you get access to one of the best militaries in the game, and very strong national ideas all around. It takes practice, cunning, and strategy to get the ball rolling in Japan, especially as a daimyo, but it's a great way to learn how to handle handle alliance webs, as well as how to launch successful naval invasions once you're united, with superior troops that aid in the endeavor. Number 4. Sweden. Every start up to this point has been independent. Sweden is not. To begin as Sweden, you must overthrow Denmark as your overlord, an act which takes a little bit of patience and diplomacy. After you break free, you get the chance to work with one of the best militaries in EU4, including infantry on par with Prussia's, and some fairly solid ideas otherwise. Sweden is a great and satisfying way to learn how to use nations with superior militaries, but have non-ideal starts. Number 3. Burgundy. Burgundy is more or less the opposite of Sweden. You start out with 3 personal unions, a vassal, and an alliance with the small nation of Brittany. Burgundy is all about the diplomacy and politics of running multiple subjects, which is an important lesson for building truly epic empires, and apart from the risk of having your entire country inherited if your king dies in battle, Burgundy is a fairly solid start with good ideas as well. Burgundy can technically form France, though this is, if nothing else, a little ironic. Burgundy can also form the Netherlands, but if France exists in any capacity, all non-Dutch lands are returned to France when you form the country. The Netherlands are also extremely fun in their own right, but Burgundy is a good country to play if you like having options. Number 2. Muscovy. If you're new to the game and want to get better at managing combat, sieges, and large amounts of troops, look no further. Muscovy gets a massive amount of troops by itself, which, when combined with quantity ideas, results in a nearly endless supply of troops and manpower. Muscovy can expand in nearly every direction, and even gets a free colonist as part of its national ideas if you want to experiment with colonization without playing someone like Portugal. Like Burgundy, Muscovy starts the game with 3 subject nations that can help you learn to use and annex vassals to their fullest potential. Combine this with a mission that gives free claims on Novgorod, allowing a war within the first month of the game, and you have a nation which is forgiving, fast-paced, and equipped to teach you the strategy of mass expansion. And now we have number 1, Bohemia. If you're new to the game and want a reasonable challenge that won't frustrate you to tears, look no further. Bohemia is a semi-large nation in the Holy Roman Empire with a nice set of ideas, including a 10% increase to imperial authority. Bohemia is a good nation for learning how to play the subtle mechanics of the HRE, and because of its authority, becoming emperor and thus uniting the HRE into one nation is that much easier. Bohemia starts with a single, manageable vassal, and has potentially tough rivals nearby that force a player to use shrewd diplomacy and potentially become emperor in order to succeed. Bohemia also starts with a regency council, meaning your starting years require you to think diplomatically, which is a skill that can help you in almost any future campaigns you might play. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like and comment with your own picks for nations that really teach you how to be a better player without being too punishing. And, of course, subscribe if you want to see more EU4 content daily or top 10s weekly. Until next time, Godspeed, and may luck be on your side.